has Rwanda inflected our understanding of atrocity and prevention and the role of gender in that respect?
Okay. Well, in the case of Rwanda, we saw that sexual violence is not just a kind of a side effect or a form of collateral damage during war and ethnic cleansing, but it's rather a major mechanism for ethnic cleansing and also for state making, seeking to produce, states that are ethnically homogenous. And I think that, we also saw that sexual violence is perpetrated by both men and women, and both men and women, as well as children, are victims of this type of violence. So it affects many different groups of people, right? But it affects them in different ways. So there are really clear gendered patterns, and there are gendered impacts. So, if I can give a few examples here, what we see is that women are very much seen as wombs or hosts for an ethnically pure population, and men are seen as warriors, right? The ones who have to kind of commission and create that, that homogenous society. And that is what genocide seeks to achieve. So in the case of Rwanda, we saw that men were targeted for sex selective killing because they were seen as the ones who would be resisting. And women were targeted for sexual violence, particularly to impregnate them, so that they would be raised for mass executions. And both were victims of rape, castration, and mutilation and torture. But what we saw is that men were much more likely to be targeted for killing, and women were much more likely to be targeted for rape, particularly to impregnate them, so that they would be reproducing the dominant ethnic group. And I think, so those kind of patterns are also reflected in the impacts. The reason why sexual violence is used and seen to be effective is precisely because it generates stigma and really societal shame, not just for the victim, but for their family and their entire community. And as a result, this type of violence tends to be hidden, tends not to be reported. It kind of goes, it continues and really with impunity. So it can oppress a whole community and without recourse to any type of justice. And I think that the impact of that then is, and the impact of using this type of violence in addition to killing during the Rwandan war left many women as single heads of households, right? Responsible for children, sometimes responsible for war babies, whilst men who survived tended to flee to neighbouring countries and displacement camps. So that the gendered violence and the gendered commissioning of sexual violence had a different impact on men and women. And that's what we learned about genocide, that we can't actually understand its patterns or its consequences without a gendered perspective.